Welcome to Dr. Steps YouTube channel. Today we're going to have a quick look at the history of psychology, just to understand what psychology is in preparation for your other questions like how do I choose a therapist and how do I deal with anxiety. Psychology had its origins in ancient Greece and it became a separate discipline in the late 1800s. The French philosopher René Descartes introduced the idea of dualism, an idea that the mind and the body are two separate entities. It was Wilhelm Wundt in 1874, with his publication The Principles of Physiological Psychology and the world's first psychology lab, who is seen as the originator of psychology as we know it today. He used a process known as introspection. His student, Edward B. Tishner, founded psychology's first major school of thought, namely structuralism, which stated that human consciousness could be broken down into smaller parts, like the most basic sensations and perceptions. In North America, William James emerged as the father of American psychology, publishing his textbook The Principles of Psychology. This established a new school of thought known as functionalism. The focus of functionalism was about how behavior works to help people live in their environment. Functionalists used methods such as direct observation to study the human mind and behavior. Sigmund Freud, an Austrian physician, changed the face of psychology in a dramatic way, proposing a theory of personality that emphasized the importance of the unconscious mind. According to Freud, psychological disorders are the result of unconscious conflicts that escalate out of control. During the early 20th century, behaviorism came into being, rejecting the emphasis on both the conscious and unconscious mind. Instead, behaviorism focused only on observable behavior. John B. Watson was followed by B. F. Skinner as the foremost behaviorist. Skinner proposed operant conditioning, which dealt with punishment and reinforcement on behavior. A new school of thought known as humanistic psychology came into being during the second half of the 20th century. Sometimes referred to as the third force in psychology, its emphasis is on conscious experiences. American psychologist Carl Rogers is often considered to be one of the founders of this school of thought. While psychoanalysts looked at unconscious impulses and behaviorists focused on environmental causes, Rogers believed in the power of free will and self-determination. Psychologist Abraham Maslow also contributed to humanistic psychology with his hierarchy of needs. This theory suggested that people were motivated by increasingly complex needs. Once the most basic needs are fulfilled, people then become motivated to pursue higher level needs. During the 1950s and 1960s, cognitive psychology began to replace psychoanalysis and behaviorism as the dominant approach in psychology. Since that time, cognitive psychology has remained a dominant area of psychology as researchers continue to study things such as perception, memory, decision-making, problem-solving, intelligence, and language. The introduction of brain imaging tools, such as MRI and PET scans, have made it possible for researchers to study the inner workings of the brain. So that was just a very short synopsis of psychology, where we come from, where we are today. That doesn't help you a lot if you're looking for a psychologist, but I think nonetheless important to understand the scientific background of my field, of our field. So the next video I'd like to make on, now that you know a bit about psychology, if you want to choose a therapist, how do you make sense of all the different therapies? So in the context of today's talk, you now know that there's behaviorism and there's psychoanalysis. What else is out there? If a therapist advertises themselves as eclectic or narrative, what does that mean? So watch the next video and I'll explain that to you.